Good evening, everyone. I am Jen Bordeaux, the Director of Public Relations with New Direction Family Law, and we appreciate you joining us for this month's rendition of Family Law Uncorked. For the month of July, this is literally the last day of the month, and earlier this month we celebrated the 4th of July holiday and all that surrounds that, being the independence of our country and freedom and all that entails. And so in keeping with that theme, I wanted to discuss financial independence and freedom, and because divorce and finances can be very convoluted and there's a lot of questions going on whenever you're looking at finances and separating budgets and how that's going to look moving forward, and what do we do with retirement accounts and what are our options, and do we need to talk to financial advisors? The short answer to that question is yes. That's what they're there for. So for that reason, I brought in today Mr. Kenny Bollinger with Madison Oaks Wealth Partners. I'm going to have him talk a little bit about himself here in just a minute. And he can speak to some of that in more general terms, but just like law, with financial responsibility comes logistics that we have to cover our bases with compliance and all that good stuff. So I have a quick statement that I'm going to read to make sure that Kenny is covered on his end with legalities and everything else, so just bear with me. Advisory services are offered through Emerald Investment Partners, a registered investment advisor doing business as Madison Oaks Wealth Partners. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. More information about Emerald, including its advisory services and fee schedule, can be found on Form ADV Part 2, which is available upon request. This material is not financial advice or an offer to sell any product. That's probably the key statement out of all of that. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. This information does not address individual situations and should not be construed or viewed as any type of individual or group recommendation. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor, legal and/or tax professional before implementing any securities, investment, or investment strategies discussed. So, now that is out of the way, I do also have my laptop over here so that I can see any questions that might be popping up, and I see some comments that are already happening here, so let me take a good look at this. Haley, thank you for tuning in. And Kevin, thank you. He's one of our rock star supporters on social media, so we really appreciate you tuning in as well. For anyone watching, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to shout them out, and we will do our best to address them. If not directly and right now, then to follow up later as well. So we will jump right into these questions if you're ready. Oh, actually, I want to introduce yourself. Sorry about that. I guess people want to know who you are. All right, so take it away.
My name is Kenneth Bollinger. I'm a managing partner at Madison Oaks Wealth Partners. My partner and I are both certified financial planners, and we're an independent wealth management company. Both of us have been in the financial services business since basically 1994. We've known each other since 1996. So we formed Madison Oaks in 2017 out of a desire to be independent and do what is, quote, what is in the best interest of the client. So we did work at a broker-dealer, insurance-based broker-dealer for a little while, and decided to hang our own shingle and start our own private wealth management company to really get to know our clients, work with a select amount of clients, and learn their financial situation from top to bottom.
Awesome. And I love it. So please explain how you guys came up with the name of your...
Madison Oaks is a blend of both my partner and I worked on Madison Avenue, where we traded for the largest institutions and hedge funds in the world earlier in our career. And then Oaks, we're always the city of Oaks, so we thought it kind of pulled our careers together, where we were and where we are today.
Awesome. From a marketing standpoint, and Haley, if you're still watching, I'm sure you can appreciate this too. I love a good name and where it comes from, so that's awesome.
Very nice.
Okay, so now we will jump into the questions that we have here, and hopefully these will address any questions or debunk some myths and give you some good information. But again, we're here for your questions, so feel free to shout them out if you have any. First, we'll start with, we hear financial planner, that I'm a financial planner, but there is such a thing as a certified financial planner. So explain, in terms that we'll understand, what the difference is between a certified financial planner and then someone maybe that just calls themselves a financial planner, but they don't have this certification.
Understand. So the certified financial planner has to go through, whether it's self-study or I went through the Duke continuing study program, you have to take a 7-course, basically 9-month program where you walk through 7 different subjects, and that'd be the fundamental of financial planning, that's risk management, insurance and retirement, that's financial planning, it's investment planning, retirement planning, and then there's also estate planning along with tax planning, if I didn't mention that. And then you have to pass each of those 7 sections, and then you wrap it up with an overall, they call it a capstone case course, to where you bring all of the 7 sectors into one big case, and you take on this big case and you walk through a mock case.
Okay.
And you have to pass all 7 of those courses. And then after completing that, you have to sit through a 7-hour, 170-question exam where the pass rate is below 70%. So first time pass rate is below 70%. Second time pass rate, if you happen to fail, is even lower.
Okay.
So it doesn't go higher. Now, one designation out there is the chartered financial consultant is probably the closest to a CFP, and they take the same 7 courses, but the CHFC does not require a bachelor's degree, which is required out of a CFP. They don't set for a massive final exam, they just pass their 6 courses. And they are not held to the fiduciary rule, and if you know much about the fiduciary rule, it's a very controversial within Wall Street and the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. But as a CFP and also being independent, we're required to do what is in the best interest of the client, which is basically what the fiduciary rule centers around.
So, all in all, I mean, that just protects you more and gives you more of a peace of mind. From what I'm hearing and understanding is that you've got somebody who, like you said at the end, is really looking out for your best interests, not just give me your money and let me put it somewhere.
Right.
So they're going to look at the bigger picture, and they've got that certification to uphold and that responsibility that just takes it to another level. So,
and we look at someone's financial picture in a holistic way. We're not just looking at investments, or we're not looking at this or that. We're looking at everything and peeling back the onion and getting really deep with our clients and making sure they're protected or they have the proper investment set up to meet their goals and needs.
Awesome, which is great. You want to have that kind of experience and qualification
Right
in your corner whenever you're discussing all of this. So awesome, thank you for that. So let's talk about if someone is going through a divorce, because obviously that's what we're assisting people in making it their way through that fun process. When you sign up for, when you have accounts and things like that, you generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, designate a beneficiary.
Correct.
Okay, so when going through a divorce, with any services that financial advisors may offer, do you need to change that beneficiary whenever you're divorced, or does it automatically change?
It doesn't automatically change, and I think that's one of the key aspects. And I will say, always consult a divorce attorney and potentially an estate attorney. Laws are state specific, so they change from state to state. But
Absolutely.
What happens if you don't change your beneficiary?
Right.
Hypothetically, you are divorced, the divorce is final, you change your will with an estate attorney, but you didn't change your beneficiaries on your 401k
Right.
or your IRA. Those take precedent over the will. So
Okay.
they're going to end up with your ex-spouse, and I'm not sure that's something that someone who's getting divorced really wants to happen. So
Yeah.
once the divorce is final, or maybe depending on state, are separated and they can change those with the approval of the spouse, that's where I think you come in and you can make changes. Probably not highly recommended why you guys are battling and fighting over this before you even get to legal separation to change beneficiaries. The court could look adversely on that.
Yeah, and
Again,
that's,
depending from state to state, if they think some foul play is going on, that's not going to be well received from a judge.
yeah, and that's definitely something that you want to, as Kenny mentioned, consulting with a family law attorney about, so that they can discuss with you a plan and a strategy for when to do that, or if it affects things negatively, or how that would look. So definitely heed that advice.
I also think once everything is finalized and you're completely divorced, it's a good time to reassess beneficiaries, healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney. Those are all little things that, sitting down with an estate attorney or maybe working with your divorce attorney to make sure all of that is buttoned up after you get through the tough process of getting to the end of the divorce.
Yeah, and that lends itself to why it's so important to have all of these, to take advantage of these resources that are around you, because divorce is so comprehensive. Not only from the legal and financial standpoint, but from the emotional and mental standpoint. So you're not going to think of everything all at the beginning, or even halfway through, or there's going to be things you thought about and forget and have to revisit. And so that's what these professionals are there for, is to help you remember those things and, like you said, button it up and make sure that you and your family are protected for moving forward. So great point. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. So this is a question that we come in contact with all the time. So let's say I am receiving half of my spouse's retirement account, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
As part of the property settlement. What are my options for that money? Should I just take it out as cash and run? Should I reinvest it? And I know that it really depends upon the person's situation and what kind of accounts it is, but just in general.
There are three really main choices that you can do with it. You can take the money and run, and you can take it out, but you're going
Don't really run. We're
don't
just
run.
joking.
You can
cash the money
you
out.
can cash the money out. That being said, there are tax consequences there. If it's in a retirement account, it's in a tax deferred account, you take it out, you're going to pay, it becomes ordinary income. Okay, so it could either bump you up a bracket in the income tax brackets, or you can, regardless, you're gonna have to pay some sort of tax on that.
Right.
So that's something I don't think people think about. And that's probably the least recommended option, is to take it out in a lump sum. A lot of people think about, I'm divorced now, I'm gonna go buy a new car or make a big purchase, and I'm gonna take the money out. That's probably not the overall best decision, but it is an option. Another option, depending on the company that the spouse has his retirement plan with, you can actually leave it in the plan. Some companies allow you to leave it in, hypothetically, Google's 401k.
Okay.
They separate the assets, but it is still in Google's 401k if you want to leave it there.
Gotcha.
You can.
So even if you're not like a member, if you don't
you're
work
not,
for the company,
that is
but
correct.
because of that.
And all
Okay.
this is guided by the Quadra, right?
Of course, yeah.
So, all depending on a company's plan. So, the third option, and this is probably what we see the most, is they end up rolling those assets into an IRA. And if you're not real strong with investments and understanding of investments, that's where you look for a certified financial advisor or certified financial planner to work with to help you draw up a plan. Now you're out on your own, you're all by yourself. Are you looking to buy a house? Are you looking to anything, whatever you're looking at, this is where the advisor could help you with your investments and establishing a complete plan to kind of get you going forward.
Sure. So you can see why you've got options. You
Yeah.
may not know what all they are, the pros and cons to each, and a lot of it depends upon, I'm sure, the company that the plan is
the
through.
companies
and,
are,
so
each
there's a
have
lot
their
that
own
goes
rules.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now gray divorce is a thing that has been trending more in social media, or just in media in general, about the rise in gray divorce. That actually and so gray divorce is going to be 55 and up. So 55 and below, that divorce rate is actually decreasing, where that was the most commonly known. 50% of the married population gets divorced. So while that number is decreasing, the gray divorce rate is increasing. Recent years have shown. So I read an article, probably within the last couple of weeks, that says that can be worse. Being in a gray divorce situation, that can be worse for the financial health of the person than if they divorced when they were younger. What are your thoughts on that?
You're completely right that gray divorce is on the rise, and I've seen stats from anywhere from 30 to 50% over the last decade that gray divorce has been on the rise. And I think if you take it back a little bit, the baby boomers, and not to put them in a category, but they're the biggest category out there that are all coming up to retirement. They're realizing they've worked their life, for all their lives. They've put kids through college. They've done everything, and now there are two people home alone.
Mhm.
And everyone has been focused for the last 20 or 30 years of raising the family and creating a family, and then all of a sudden, you're busy with your job, your spouse is busy with her job, you've both retired, and now you're here looking at each other saying, what are we going to do?
Mhm.
Interests have changed. I may want an active lifestyle, play golf 8 days a week.
People are living
Someone
longer,
else would living
so
longer.
they feel like
is
they
a-
have more life,
That's right. I mean,
beyond.
think about it, I think it's
Yeah.
1 in 10 now lives, if you're 65, 1 in 10 lives to 95. That's a big number these days, and
Yeah.
so they may think, I gotta get out of this miserable marriage, and I have 20 to 30 years more to live.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the bigger reasons also why I think you're seeing gray divorce, and a lot of them also are just, I think they're bored, and then it becomes, find something new,
Yeah.
I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah, what else can I do?
And, yeah, and so those are some of the common reasons, but, it can have a big negative consequence on the overall financial picture. I mean, hypothetically, a married couple, they've worked all their lives, they have $1 million, we'll use a round number. They split those assets 50-50, and they go their own happy way. All of a sudden, each one is having to buy a new house. They have to pay the electricity bills. There's a lot more, when you're two operating as one, it's much more efficient. When you're both out on your own, you're each paying your own bills, your entertainment, vacations, whatever. And also, divorcing later, you don't have the time to make that up. Like if you're divorced in your 30s, you may not have a lot of assets, but you have 30, 35 years of working time, in theory, to make all that up. Finding a great paying job at 65 is not the easiest thing to do. So you don't have a chance to make, if you split that $1 million, $500,000 each, there's not a lot of opportunity to make that grow back to $750,000 or $1 million because there's just not that many well-paying jobs out there to rebuild your nest egg. So that's one of the biggest things that we see, and the dangers. If you have to get divorced, obviously that's understandable, but that can really be an obstacle, is splitting those assets, each going their own way, and everyone's paying for their own way from there on out, and no time to recover because they really can't get a well-paying full-time job.
Yeah, in Great Divorce, there are, from a cultural standpoint, the view on divorce and the change of the climate of that over the years. There's a lot of different variables that likely play into the Great Divorce, but definitely something to take into consideration.
We're seeing more of it.
Yeah,
all the time.
if you're in a miserable marriage and it's something that, it's come to the point where it's determined that this just isn't going anywhere, and, then you gotta do what you gotta do, and then you try to make the best of the situation, I suppose, and what the cards you're dealt with at that time, the financial aspect
depending
of
on the couple situation, it could affect Social Security also. So there's a lot of variables that you have to think about and take into consideration.
Yeah.
But obviously you have to do what is best for yourself to keep you healthy.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if you still got another 30 to
30
40
years.
years.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, well, I won't take up too much of your time because I really do appreciate you joining us. But I know personally, before I got into the profession of being in contact with financial advisors, that you guys get a bad rap a lot of times, or sometimes I'll say, but you know what, attorneys do too. So after meeting different financial planners, yourself and present company included, some of those, preconceptions and notions and myths and stuff that I had in my head were debunked. That you guys can be pretty awesome. So
We try.
So what are some of the biggest myths that you guys have out there, stereotypes or myths about your financial planners?
The quickest way to break up a party is say you're a financial advisor and they scatter like cockroaches.
Yeah.
So that's probably the easiest way to describe it. No, but the first and probably the oldest is advisors are slick and rich, right? We try to sell you products. We're out to fleece you of your money, which is the furthest from the truth. I really don't think that is prevalent these days. Is it out there? There's always 1% to 2% that give the 98% a bad rap. And so is it possible? Yes. From the rich standpoint, I think the median salary for a financial advisor is like $90,000, right? So a good living, but not like extravagant.
You're not doing
linear-
backstroke in your
yeah.
dollars over here.
No, not at all. So that's one. The next one, and that kind of ties into it, financial advisors are in the pocket of Wall Street, right? So there's only, it's a big number, 50,000 people working with the big four brokerages, which is a lot of brokers who are working with, the big names that you think of, the Merrill Lynch's, the Smith Barneys, those are the world. But there's 800,000 other independent advisors out there, whether they're part of a large registered investment advisor, whether they're one or two man shops working on their own. So really the people at a brokerage house is actually kind of small versus the overall 800,000 people, advisors out there. And then there's another 1.2 million that are in the insurance industry that kind of overlap and cross both the insurance and the advisor side.
Okay.
So, three, I don't need an advisor. I'm a very simple person. I don't need it. Not true. Some people may think they can do it themselves, but I don't need an advisor. It's not all about the investments. There's so much more than just the investments, right? Even if you're fresh out of school and you've been working 2 years, what are your goals in life? What, do you want to take a vacation every year? Do you plan on going back to grad school? Are your goals to buy a house? There's so many other situations that come into play than just the investments. And I think, as a certified financial planner, that's where we encompass everything and kind of pull everything together. And so that is, one of the big things that I think is a misconception, is that someone doesn't need it. And I think in anything, it helps to have a second set of eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's like, hey, did you see this? I was reading a story about this guy who quit his job, invented a patent, got it patented, and the patent lawyer says, I hope you have enough money raised because the big guys are going to come after this in 2 years and you'll be out of business. And he's like, he pointed something out to me. So I think, we're there to kind of coach you along, and we've been in the business enough to see stuff that maybe someone young and thinks that they have a simple life hadn't seen yet.
Right.
So they can always lean on us for that. One of the others is they could do it themselves. Not only are they simple, they can do it themselves. I need XYZ, that's all I need. I can buy a couple mutual funds, set it and forget it. I know the market. There's so many different things that we help out from there. One is the emotional detachment. When you're making investment decisions on your own in a microscope, there are very few people that can time the market and get it right all the time. Warren Buffett is the biggest investors out there, and he says you can't time the market. So there's an interesting article recently in the New York Times about a New York Times reporter that met with a club called the Tiger 21 Club, which is an exclusive club for people with 10 million and above in investable assets, and they pay roughly 30,000 in dues each year. So this is the elite of the elite. But he interviewed them all, and he walked in there thinking they were going to rip apart his financial or his investments. They looked at him and said, you don't have enough life insurance, you don't have disability, you don't have this, and you don't have that. And none of it had to do with the investment side. So again, how I think a competent advisor can help you is looking at all of that stuff. So that's really a pretty good example. And I think also, the last one is probably, it's all about the money. It's all about numbers.
And then you have to
That you have to have a certain amount.
Exactly.
Or, it's just about returns and it's about how we craft a portfolio. It's not, and I think, good advisors, you get very personal with your clients. Again, back to your goals, you hate to talk about life insurance because that, talks about death. But think about leaving someone, your loved ones, and you didn't have the proper amount of insurance to see them struggle. You passed on, but you've left your family a mess. On the flip side, disability insurance, which you're 4 times more likely to become disabled than you are to die prematurely, is very important. So think about not having the proper coverage and you become disabled to where you can't perform your job. So you, in a dire situation, could be handicapped and tied to a wheelchair, and you're seeing the mess that you left your family. And so those are types of true conversations that you get to get granular with your clients and learn a little bit more about them and their emotional decisions. I can speak for myself. It took my wife and I about 3 years to figure out guardianship. We were here, we were there, then we here, and we're back to here. And so those are tough conversations that you have. And it's funny to see different parents and how they feel about money. Some were self-made and they weren't around any money and they're like, I'm gonna spend it all and leave none to my kids. Some are more like they care more about their kids and their grandkids, and so they're very frugal, and they want to see that more is left to their heirs than another person would. So there's a lot of, really hand-holding and emotional conversations we have with our client than we do just saying, buy X, Y, Z, or let's look at this type of investment, or something along that lines.
Yeah.
Which, that's where you get close to your, clients, and it's really enjoyable to, they walk out of there feeling secure and protected.
Absolutely. So whether you're going through a life-changing experience like divorce, or just need to start thinking about and I know, I had, when my first job was out of college, I had, my supervisor was very, you're 21, you need to start doing something now, even if it's a little bit.
Every little bit.
And I just didn't even, it wasn't something I'd really thought about. So just nobody likes to really talk about money. So we have professionals that do.
I'm here to help anyone in any way possible.
So it just gives you kind of that edge, that accountability, that person to go to have those conversations that knows how to initiate that, and again, look at the overall picture, your goals, and understand that that's going to probably change over time too. And again, that's what the resource is there for. So definitely important, and then especially in a situation like divorce, whenever you've got a whole new financial picture that you're going to have to paint and figure out what that looks like for you. It is so important to lean on as many resources as you can to help you figure that out and set yourself up for success and for your families as well. So, Kenny, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been an honor to be part of one of these series.
Thank you, and let people know how they can get in contact with you.
You can email me at Kenny, Kenny, at MadisonOaksWP.com, or you can call 919-324-3493.
Awesome. Unfortunately, there's somebody that responded up here, but they responded in Spanish, and I'm so sorry, but I don't speak Spanish.
I can't translate. Okay. I apologize.
So sorry about that. But we do appreciate you tuning in. So thank you for that. And as always, you can reach us here on Facebook, our website, calling into the office, emailing directly, info@New Direction Family Law. We're pretty accessible, and that's the goal. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next month for the August version of Family Law in Court. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you very much, Jen. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank you.